Let's talk about best practices and create an action plan around capturing traffic in Wireshark. The first best practice is more of a warning. Your network interface card that you're using to capture traffic on a specific interface has a protocol stack, and that protocol stack has limits in terms of the data rate at which it can capture traffic. And normally that limit is somewhere between 60 and 110 megabits per second. So sometimes when you're connecting with a gigabit interface, you may find that you may run into some physical limits of your network card. If you're capturing on a device like a tablet, you may also run into some storage limit. So be very, very cautious when you're doing a live capture not to capture too much traffic. In the next module, we'll be talking about how to filter live traffic so you just capture the traffic that you're interested in, and that way you can limit the amount of data that you're actually capturing. I mentioned this best practice at the beginning of this module. I recommend that before you do your live capture, you create a network map. This will give you an understanding of the type of traffic that you might see across that network link before you start sniffing the network. I personally always like to do a physical inventory first. In a large enterprise environment, this may not be possible because you may not have access to where the network equipment is. But in your home or a small business, just walk around and make a note of the physical components. You might see switches and routers, different types of end user devices, and maybe even wireless access points and network servers and specialized equipment like firewalls and intrusion prevention systems. After you've done a physical inventory, many people jump straight to doing the digital inventory, seeing what they can see on the network based on a network scan. While doing this, you can then identify different addresses, for example, your IP addresses or your MAC addresses. Once you've got your network map, you'll be in good shape to then decide where and how you want to capture traffic on your network. At the beginning of this module, we talked about 4 different options for capturing traffic on a network. In the lab, you captured traffic that was going to and from your computer. Wherever possible, you should do a capture in a way that avoids impacting the live network traffic. The most common approach is to use port mirroring, so you can capture traffic going in and out of a specific port. And if the switch has capacity, this approach has less risk of impacting your live network traffic. The other approach, which will not impact your live network traffic, is to put a full duplex tap on the network link. As we discussed earlier, it does not scale well, but the important thing is to avoid impacting your live network. This best practice may surprise you a little bit. We had discussed in the first module the importance of defining the goal as to why you're doing the packet capture. The reason we want to do that is that when you do a packet capture, you may be really intrigued by the different things that you see within that packet capture. And it is super easy to get sidetracked and forget your original goal. I cannot tell you how many times I have done this. Our final best practice is something we talked about when we were exploring the graphical interface. I want to remind you that if you see something you're not expecting in Wireshark, always maintain a little bit of healthy skepticism. Ask yourself, is Wireshark displaying this information correctly? Remember that the bytes pane displays the bits that are captured by the NIC card and passed up to Wireshark. And then the Wireshark application then interprets those ones and zeros and displays for you a description of the fields carried in those packets. It is not very common, but occasionally Wireshark's interpretation of those ones and zeros is actually incorrect. If I'm working at a level where I need to know the content of specific fields, I like to bring up the specification for that specific protocol, because the specifications themselves will describe the individual fields and what the purpose of those fields are. Let's take a look at a quick example. Let's say I want to look up the specification for the IETF IP protocol. I've searched that into Google, and the first option is for RFC 791. So let's click on that, and we can see this is the original specification for IP. And up at the top it shows the latest specifications which have amended this RFC. I'm going to do a search for header format. I'll click that one more time, and here you can see in this specifications it defines the fields in the IP header, starting with the version, going through to the source and destination MAC addresses, etc. If we scroll down, each of those fields are then defined in this specification. So when you're using Wireshark for specific protocols, always bear in mind that it can be valuable to have the original specification. Wireshark is an open source application, and you can report bugs if you find them. So I've put here the URL for you for Bugzilla. You can search the Wireshark bug database to see if a bug has already been reported, and then if you want to report a bug, this is the best way to report it. You have learnt some important skills in this Wireshark module. What should you do next? I would encourage you to continue to use Wireshark by looking at the traffic that's going to and from your computer, just like we did in an earlier demo. Become familiar with how the information is laid out and the shortcuts you have for navigating your live captures. Next, list down the protocols that are important for you in your job function. Which ones do you need to know about? It may be that your capture of traffic going to and from your computer does not effectively display those protocols in a way that will help you do your job function. In that case, look for sample captures that are online, and the first place you should look for these packet captures is on the Wireshark wiki. I would also encourage you, for the protocols that you need to know about, is see if you can acquire the specifications that define those protocols. By looking at a combination of sample captures or your live captures and the specifications, you can start to become really effective at understanding the protocols, which is then our first step to analyzing and troubleshooting network problems. You have been watching the Wireshark module, Capturing Network Traffic with Wireshark. You know how to capture live traffic, and you understand how it's displayed in Wireshark, and you understand how to navigate your way around those packet captures. In the next module, we're going to start filtering live traffic so that you don't capture too much and overwhelm either your NIC card or your computer. Thank you for listening.